Hello and welcome to Unmasking the Spectrum. So I'm your host and I'm the founder of Unmasking the Spectrum, Benjamin Colley. I have ADHD and I'd like to introduce my guest, Kathryn.
Hello.
So Kathryn here has got dyslexia and that's going to be sort of the main topic of this episode right here. So Kathryn,
Yes.
from what age did you really realise you had dyslexia?
Oh, well, I think I realised there was something different about me about age 5. I didn't realise it was anything that I could put a name to until I was about 12.
I see.
Yeah.
So when you were about 5, did you really understand the impact it had on how you read, how you write, other children? Did you realise that this was something that wasn't normal?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I was always different, especially in like English or anything talking and reading, and it always took me a lot longer to read through things than other people, and my handwriting was really bad. Still is.
I see.
And yeah, no, I definitely stood out in that sense.
Yeah. So I was going to say, you're someone as well that's got a bachelor's degree.
I do, yes.
Yeah, so I think for people with dyslexia, I think there's all these sort of stigmas thinking, well, I can't do well in school or I can't do well in like higher education because it's a limiting factor. So what are like some techniques that you've developed for yourself that have really helped you to thrive?
Well, I was 100% one of those people that thought I couldn't do anything. That's, I think encouragement from family and friends was probably the biggest help
Yeah.
at the start, encouraging me to try new things. And just because I'm not good at English or anything written,
Yeah.
I could do other things, and which turned out to be more creative.
I see. I found having ADHD. I've not got dyslexia, but I always struggled with English within school. But then when I went to college and uni, I found that I was having to do a lot of sort of essays, and I know especially in college because I was doing film and TV, I was writing sort of like video essays to do with films, and I actually found that I was able to write loads of paragraphs. I was able to use like some quite long, complicated words. I was able to, write really well formed sentences. And I was thinking, hang on a minute, like if I'm not as good at English, how am I able to do this and get such good grades on it? So I really think it is what you're writing about as well. I mean, for someone with ADHD, I would really struggle to, write about Shakespeare in detail. But if you're like, oh, write an essay on Edgar Wright or write a film review of this, then that's something I can write in detail on, or especially a special interest like running. I have my own vlog posts that I do every day on Strava where I'll go into loads of detail. And I'm not even someone that I would say is good at English because I failed English in school and I had to redo it when I was in college. I'm not sure if you had a similar experience or whether you did well in English.
Uh, yeah, no, English, no. But it was just something I always hated. I thought, oh no, I've got English, I've got double English, how can I get out of this? But I think finding the right teacher to talk to you, I think, really helped. Because
Yeah.
I think quite a lot of teachers were quite confused on how to deal with someone with my difficulties, and rather just thrown in the deep end of, oh, this person needs extra help, go and help them. So they were like, how should we do this? But it was, I think, just having that one-to-one with someone and
Yeah.
going through things more slowly and
I was going
having that
to
extra
say,
time.
do you think that teachers, not all teachers obviously, but do you think there is a lack of education towards teachers in teaching them how to deal with certain kids with things such as dyslexia or ADHD? Do you think that's one of those things where teachers don't quite know how to deal with that when it comes up? And, rather than having a set training method, they just sort of all react differently. Some of them can react really harshly and they can like blame it on you as just being bad. And other teachers are really good and they come up with all these other systems. So what do you say about that?
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure put on teachers, and quite often, especially with teaching assistants, they just don't have the training. They haven't been given the opportunity to learn about how to teach and treat the children that might need a bit extra help. And that often comes across in the wrong way to people, whether it feels like they're being neglected or, I don't know, treated poorly. I mean, I know at school I felt that way. I was always singled out and put at the back of the class. Felt like I was alienated, and it wasn't necessarily the teacher's fault. I think they just needed some more training.
Yeah. I mean, another thing I was going to ask you is there any challenges in particular that you faced having dyslexia? You know, not just sort of reading, writing. Is there anything where it affects you outside of that?
Memory, my short-term memory. Quite often I'd have to keep looking up and down from reading something like on a board, or if I'm trying to remember something that, like a paragraph that I'm reading out to people, I'll have to keep checking what I've written, because my short-term memory is very bad, and it can make things very difficult if I'm trying to make a good impression.
It can come across as if you're lazy or forgetful when you forget things short term. I mean, that's something, sometimes I can really thrive on that, where I remember a lot of things. There's other times where it's something really basic and I'll just forget, and I'll come across as lazy or that I wasn't listening. I mean, one thing I used to sort of get told by people is that I'll be having a conversation or someone will be telling me instructions, and because I'm talking over it or I'm looking at something else, they'll think I'm not listening. Whereas if I try and listen and I try and sit there and look like I'm listening, that's not me listening. That's me trying to put on a mask of, sitting there and looking concentrated and looking mature. Whereas sometimes I find that I could just sort of play a game in the background and I can like take in information really well. I find it with podcasts a really good way of doing it. Yes. So what equipment have you found useful for managing dyslexia?
Well, the first piece of equipment I got that I found useful was my tinted glasses. And at first I didn't think, how is this going to help me? I've just got coloured glasses. Like, look a bit like Elton John with the pink or the orange glasses. But it helped, for me at least, it helped stop like words or letters being the one way round or floating about, and it helped me process the words better than just reading it normally. Other things that I've had that you can speak to the computer and it will type out.
Oh yeah, like text to speech. That's very common nowadays.
Yeah.
I remember when that was up and coming.
Yeah.
One thing I am really curious about, so when you look at screens and when you look at a paper, like, do you find screens harder to look at, or do you find reading off of paper or books harder? Is there any differences in that?
Generally books, because with screens I can make the text bigger or I can adjust it how I want.
You're able to change the typeface.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Colours.
I can tint the page or however I want. But if it's a book, that is just how it is. I have to try and read it as it is.
Yeah, it's hard to sort of make adjustments there.
Yeah.
So when you look at a book, for example, what do you actually see? Like, because for example, a normal person, I guess, like neurotypical person, would read a book and they would just see each word and they'd easily be able to just scan across the page, go down to the next line. Like, do you have issues sort of scanning or going on to the next line, or is it that, sometimes you don't recognize words when you see them?
Well, I remember in class when you have to stand up and read, I was always envious of everyone being able to just stand up and easily read through line after line after line. And I'd stand up and I'd lose my place on the page, the words would be moving around, I'd be trying to find what I'm reading, and it would take me a long time to process one word and then the next word, then the next word, and sometimes I get jumbled up in my words.
I mean, I just find some of it is that, like, with long words, or if it's worded in a way that's complicated to understand, I know a lot of, like, briefs and things like that, they use sort of complicated language. And if someone was to tell me, oh, just read this in front of the class, I would struggle. I wouldn't consider myself, struggle to read, but at the same time, when I'm put on the spot to read something, I feel embarrassed if I don't know, if I can't say a word properly, or if I don't know the meaning of a word. That can happen quite a lot, really, with me. But in terms of speaking, I'm pretty confident. If it comes to public speaking or presenting, I have no issues whatsoever going up, doing that in front of audiences. But if someone told me, oh, can you read this out from a book in front of, like, a class, it would be very nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Even though it's somewhat easier because, it's right in front of you. But I find that that's harder in a way because you got to get it right. There's a pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can't do public speaking or
Have you ever
talking
had
in front.
any experience of public speaking?
Yes,
remember?
yes. At university and college, I had to do that quite a lot, unfortunately. It took lots of practice and swallowing my anxiety a bit and just trying to do it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'd often
So-
stutter and
What were the
Yeah.
things you were talking about? Was it like assignment work, or was it times they'd make you read stuff?
presentations
Ah,
mainly.
yeah.
Yeah, presentations.
I find that the more confident I am in what I've done, I find it's easier. If it's something I'm not as confident about, or if it's something where they put me more on the spot, then that's when it's harder to present. But if it's something I've gained loads of ideas, I try with my presentations, I try not to make them very text-based. I try to have more images than text because I find that bullet points are mainly talking points that I can just like refer to, and then I can say what they actually mean. So I was going to actually say to the listeners, dyslexia is a neurobiological learning difference that primarily affects the skills involved in accurate and fluent word recognition. Spelling and decoding. Individuals with dyslexia often have difficulty mapping letters, they read at a slower pace, experience challenges with spelling, and they can typically have average or above average intelligence. So in some ways, it's not actually linked to overall IQ, but there is a trend in people with dyslexia actually having higher intelligence in those areas, or being able to retain information, even though I know short-term memory is one of those things that can be a problem.
Yeah, no, I think, IQ's, I think it's often perceived that people with dyslexia might be a bit stupid or a bit slow and
More slow than stupid. I
slow.
guess.
Yeah, I mean, I've been called both at school
Yeah.
myself, but I think there are lots of people out there and in history that have done really well for themselves
Yeah.
because of their dyslexia, really. Because I think people with dyslexia or other learning difficulties might just think differently. They think.
I find they think differently. I found with a lot of people, not everyone, but there's a lot of people with learning disabilities that naturally work harder, or they're more ambitious because they're at a disadvantage and they want to fit in. So they sort of go above and beyond to try, and because of that, they end up becoming recognized for different reasons, really. From a lot of people I know of neurodiversity, they work just as hard, if not a lot harder than other people. They feel like they're already at a disadvantage. So when they go into class, for some people, it's easy. Like, reading's just, simple. There is a lot of people in the industry, in all sorts of industries, really, that have dyslexia. I know Steven Spielberg, as an example, he's a film director and producer and a writer. So, you wouldn't think someone like that could have those skills. I think people think, oh, you have this, you'll never be able to do that because of that disadvantage. But that's something that people can prove wrong. I don't think it should always be about proving wrong, because sometimes you can do things for the wrong reason, but it is definitely great fuel, and there's a lot of people that do that. They are at a disadvantage. They have people, teachers, parents, society saying, you can't do that. And then that leads them on to thinking, I want to prove them wrong, or I want to pursue my dreams, and then they go and do that. I think that's really great. But I think as well, a lot of these people do have other reasons, or they did find their own methods to, cope with it. I know Edgar Wright is someone with ADHD because I have ADHD, and growing up, I thought, oh, I couldn't be successful because, all these other people mustn't have ADHD to be successful, because in order to be successful, you have to be this or that. And then I realized a lot of people do, and there's a lot of people self-diagnosing as well, which I don't think is always right, because I think that, having ADHD and, having a lack of attention span are both very different things in how you function. And a lot of people do just have a lack of attention span today. But at the same time, there is probably a lot of people on that waiting list with autism, ADHD, dyslexia, who are not been diagnosed. I know my older brother's one of those people, actually, who has recently been diagnosed. And, it's kind of changed his outlook on a lot of things. So I was going to say, at what age were you actually diagnosed? Do you remember?
Oh, think about 15.
15.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was put through by the school and my doctor, and we had to pay
Yeah.
diagnosis.
Yeah.
But it was worth it.
I was diagnosed very young, so I don't really remember that whole process. I always remember having ADHD, whereas a lot of people who've been diagnosed later on, they remember a life before. I guess it's weird because I think about like people who've, gone blind, and the difference between people who've been born blind, because if you're born blind, like that's all you know. But say if you go blind and you're like 20, then you know a life of color and a life of vision, and then that's stripped away from you.
Yeah.
So did it really change the way you approach things, or was it one of those things where it's like, well, that's just me, that's how I am, I don't know any better?
It was people's understanding of why I might find things a bit more difficult, and it wasn't just me.
Yeah.
And that I had access to extra support for GCSEs and things.
So I think you mentioned about having the text-to-speech sort of
Text
stuff
speech.
as well. Did you get like extra time in your exams?
Extra time. I had someone with me to read the questions, write out things. I had my own room, quiet room.
Yeah. So
myself.
how did you find that? Because I mean, personally, because I had ADHD, I did my mocks separately with like extra time and in like those circumstances. But I came to the conclusion that I just didn't like it. I didn't need the extra time. I found the extra time was actually annoying because it meant it was time I couldn't leave, and I had to just sit there in silence for like an extra 40 minutes sometimes when I was already done. And it also meant that, not to be rude, but there was a lot of problem people that were in these spaces. And you'd be sitting there and they'd be trying to like distract other people because they had headphones, they'd be taking advantage of the text-to-speech and typing out stupid stuff and like listen to it back and like trying not to laugh.
Yeah.
And I found that for me personally, I just wanted to be on the same level as everyone else, and I wanted to just be in that exam hall with all the other people. I also found that when I was in those other spaces, I kind of got taken the mick out of by everyone else, saying, "Oh, you're at a disadvantage. You got an advantage over everyone else. You're lucky, this and that," or trying to say that I've not had to do the exam in the right way. So for you, how did it feel for you having that extra time or being in that separate space?
I found it, for me, it was very helpful. Especially having someone read out the questions to me and help write out things, because my handwriting was really bad. And just having that extra time, I don't have to worry about rereading the questions like 3 times and taking up all my time trying to read things and rewrite things. And that was all sort of done and supported with someone else with me.
Yeah.
So I felt like I could understand the questions better as well, having someone talk to me what the question says and not what I think it says.
Yeah. I know there's obviously
very
guidelines
helpful.
around that. They're not just going to tell you exactly because they're kind of cheating, or they're not going to correct you if you say something that's wrong.
No.
But at the same time, I guess it can still help.
Yeah. And I wasn't really getting on with other people. At that time, I was getting bullied quite a lot, so I was quite happy to have a room to myself.
Yeah. Because we don't need to go into anything too personal, but I know that a lot of people on the spectrum tend to get bullied, or they tend to get picked on. And sadly, I think it's always going to be the case that there's going to be people that get picked on, and there's going to be people that pick on people for reasons. But at the same time, why do you think that is? Like, is it because we just don't fit into what other people consider as normal, or
Yeah, I think because might be slightly different, or we're treated differently by teachers. I've met people that act out because they don't feel like they're being supported, and they've sort of given up on their education. They just mess about or become violent in some cases.
yeah?
That they just can't cope with it, and
I
it's
mean,
quite sad.
with school as well, I found that it was all exam based. There was no sort of coursework and self development in that, and it felt like everything was just the leading up to this one exam. It's like 5 years of work was all for this one,
Yeah.
moment. Whereas I found with college and university, and like when I've worked at places, that every day you're working towards a common goal, and
Personal growth.
yeah, personal growth as well. I did not understand a single thing about personal growth or personal motivation to work, being able to have reasons to study without getting distracted. I didn't understand any of that until I got to college and figured it all out for myself. But back in school, I didn't even know how to approach studying in a productive way. I didn't know how to sort of revise, how to cram. I just thought that you had to just do multiple hours of work, because that's what people say as a stereotype. You just see everyone looking stressed, sat around textbooks. But
Yeah.
every time I try to read a textbook, nothing goes in. I have to have
Yeah.
a goal. Being ADHD, I really just have to have lots of short-term and long-term goals in order to function. If I don't, I can just easily go off the rails in my head, because I just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Don't know about you. So how is that mentally, having dyslexia, in terms of like short-term, long-term goal setting? Does that help you get through the day?
Yeah. I'm very much a visual planner. I can't just
Yeah.
write things out and then there it is. It all just gets lost.
Sort of imagine what you're working towards.
Yeah.
You're trying to envision.
Yeah, I try and I mean that's why I'm very creative. I'm an artist.
Yeah.
Visual stuff is my thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's working towards things visually is yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I mean, say if I know you do art as well. You're an
Yes.
artist. I think it'd be good for you to mention sort of what kind of art you do.
I do a number of things. At the moment, I've been doing some graphic stuff. In my degree, I was doing a lot of photography and ceramics. I do a bit of illustration. I got my hands in a bit of multiple things. Yes, yeah.
So say when it comes to, let's say, photography, so when it comes to taking photos, is there like a certain approach you have to thinking about how you're going to frame it, how it's going to look, what sort of adjustments you might make in post, or is it sort of, because everyone's got a different way of working. I know when it comes to editing, I've done a lot of sort of film tributes and things, and a lot of the planning, I'll sort of make playlists, and I'll sort of walk around, listen to them, and start thinking of ideas, and I'll think of, what scene could work with this part of the song, how could I structure this, what voice lines could I use, and I think that's what sort of motivates me to make it, because I have a vision, and I want that vision to come to life, so that then motivates me to sit down for hours and to work on it. Whereas if I have no vision, I find it super hard to even get started, because I don't know why I'm editing, I don't know what I'm looking at. So I find, so for you, is that a similar sort of thing? You need to sort of know what you're envisioning.
Depends what I'm doing. If I'm doing graphics, I have to know what I'm doing. I have to have
Yeah.
a plan. I'll spend some time on my sketchbook. I'll sketch out what I'm doing. With photography, I'm much more free. I'll just take pictures on if I'm going on a trip somewhere, like
Yeah.
visiting London.
Oh yeah, London. I've done some photography in London. It's a pretty cool place. A lot of big buildings, and there's some nice nature places too. But I mean, with photography, I found my approach, unless it's something very specific I've got to photograph, is I'll just go out with my kit, take some photos, and I'll kind of just let the shots guide me in where I go. I usually listen to music as well,
Yeah.
so that kind of keeps me in a flow state, and I'll just think, oh, that looks good. So then I might, change the angle a little bit, or I might, try and change some of the settings, and I'll just keep making little adjustments based on what I can see, because I think with photography it's very visual. You get visual feedback straight away after what you've done, and then you look at it all in post. So then you get your SD card. Well, for me, I'll put that into my computer, my laptop, and I'll look through the photos and I think, oh, that one looks interesting, because they'll all look a little bit different how they look on the small screen, I find.
Yeah.
And then you have the whole process of sort of, I'll keep that one, I'll bin that one, I'll keep that one. And then you might edit a few of them on like Photoshop or using like Adobe. What's it called? The photography.
Oh,
I know Photoshop's merged
put me on
with
the
it.
spot now.
There's an Adobe software. Is it Lightroom? It could be Lightroom. But there's
Yeah,
a few
Lightroom,
different ones
yeah.
where you can
The
easily
Adobe
make it
software
Yeah.
systems, yeah, and I know what you mean.
But
yeah.
what I mean is, like, it's not just one activity. I enjoy sort of the whole process of that thing, really, and it can kind of be a nice escape from other things. I find that activities like that, it kind of takes you away from your day-to-day responsibilities and worries and things you've got to do, and it can give your brain a little bit of a break. Because I think a lot of what we struggle with neurodiverse is shutting down from everyday responsibility.
Yeah.
Even if we got everything under control, it's hard because we don't know what to think, or we can feel guilty. I think as adults as well, there's this whole stigma of, if you play video games or if you do this, you should feel like you're wasting time, or you should feel like you have to be making money. And then if you're not doing that, which most people don't, because people just want to relax when they get home, then it feels like you feel like this weird sense of guilt, I think.
Yeah.
You have to get over.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we're back to photography.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I like to focus mainly on macro photography, so really up close to things.
Yeah.
And because I always like being out in nature and getting up close to nature and just exploring sort of this small little universe they have under our feet.
Yeah.
So quite a lot of what I do is nature based.
Oh, I do prefer nature types. I don't mind buildings. I find like sort of street photography and people photography. Like, personally, I find that sort of quite unethical. Just randomly going up to people, taking photos in their face.
It's quite
I
nerve wracking as well.
Oh, it is. Yeah. I mean, anything can happen. You could
Yeah.
get all your kit fucking like smashed up if you're not careful. You take pictures of the wrong people. I think as well, it's fine if you go up to people, you're asking for permission or you're deleting the photos, but even though it's not illegal, you've got to just think, like, is this ethical? Because I think obviously laws, that's all very important, they're things that should be followed, but I think I personally function more off of like a ethical brain rather than sort of thinking, is this legal or not. I try and always think, is this ethical, and then sort of go off of that, and then obviously abiding to laws as well.
There's a lot more control to taking pictures of people and portraiture and things like that as well, which I think takes away some of what I like about photography. Because, like you said, it's that relaxing part of it that I always enjoy, and I like being free and just seeing where the photos take me. Because
Definitely.
Photography is very unpredictable. You never know what you're going to go and find when you're out and about.
I know there's all different types of photography. I know there's people who do like paparazzi and they take pictures of like celebrities. There's people who have to go out to these like war zones. Even there's like war photographers or people who go out to like crises and they have to get coverage, and that can be very daunting.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is an art still as well.
Yeah.
And it's very, very different to going out into nature and just being alone and being at peace. How do you feel your dyslexia benefits your creativity and what you do?
Well, at school, I focused a lot of my creativity because I didn't feel like I was getting anywhere with anything else. And the more I did it, the more I enjoyed it.
I see.
And the more people would comment on how much they liked what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I continued on being creative, and it gave me confidence where I didn't have confidence before in anything I did.
Well, that's great. I think a lot of us struggle from confidence, but I know you get a lot of people and they become artists and things, and they'll have that thing where they'll say that if I didn't do this, I don't know what I'd be doing, or, I'd be dead, or I'd be doing this. And was it like that for you? Like, were you like very sort of, well, not dead. Fucking hell. So I was just going to say, when it comes down to creativity, was it something you thought about doing as like a career path? Did a lot of your joy and focus depend on doing that? Or is it-
Well, a lot of stuff happened in my personal life, and I wasn't sure where I was going, and creativity was something I always fell back on,
Yeah.
and I wasn't able to jump into work, so I jumped into research and studying. Yes,
Yeah.
from college to university.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
See, I like to.
Sorry, you you just got the giggles now.
You're disrespecting studio time. Yeah, so Kathryn, is there any specific artwork you'd like to show off?
I shall show you some pictures that I did for my exhibition at university. Yeah, it's one of my pictures.
Oh, wow. So, what was sort of the aim of this photograph?
The project was about the Somerset levels, so I did.
So, where was it taken?
This was at a place called Hamwell down on the levels in Chatwick.
Oh, yeah.
And I just walked around there for a while and sort of took in the surroundings.
I see. And then you sort of chose
Took some
that
pictures.
spot?
Yeah, chose some spots to take some pictures. I did a set which I printed in sort of A2, quite large pictures.
So, what's like the meaning behind the photograph? Is there like a story or anything?
I think it's just the story of where I've been brought up and
I see.
sort of where I find peace and
Yeah.
sort of the beauty of nature, I think. And along with the photos, I did a number of
Yeah.
ceramic starlings.
I guess the last thing as well with photography is connecting me with nature in a way that I thought wouldn't. I mean, I always found that hard as someone with ADHD, you know, just like going for walks in nature. But it gave me a focus, and I found that I was focusing on all the plants and the trees a lot more because I was having to like frame them, take pictures. And normally I wouldn't do that, but this time it gave me a way of just going out and having specific focuses, and it's really relaxing. I'm not sure about you.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when times are difficult.
Yeah, because as a kid, you're like, oh, if parents say, oh, appreciate nature. You're like, oh, it's just a tree. What am I looking at? And then as you get older, I guess you do appreciate it.
Yeah, I think as you get older, you realise things disappear.
Yeah,
So appreciate them while you've got them.
of course.
Yeah.
I mean, even like locations can change and you
Yeah.
can move about and you forget what you have until you got it. But I was going to say, any last pieces of artwork you'd like to show off?
Well, there's my exhibition that I was talking about.
I see. So they're all in. That makes more sense now.
Yeah.
Seeing it in an exhibition setting.
Yeah, seeing it all together, it makes
Yeah.
more sense, doesn't it?
I
Yeah.
mean, this sort of the birds there
Yeah.
really sort of add to the photos. I think sometimes
Yeah.
photos need context around where they
Yeah.
are or how they're displayed for them to sort of
Yeah, I think that's why I enjoy mixing up.
be able to
Ceramics.
show the camera. Yeah.
Picture of me in graduation,
Ah, very nice.
and my dad.
Ah, very nice. Yeah, so thank you guys for watching Unmasking the Spectrum. It's been a great conversation with Kathryn about dyslexia. So is there
Thank you
anything
for
you'd
having
like-
me.
Spoke over me.
I know.
Yeah, you know. So thank you for watching Unmasking the Spectrum. I hope you learned something about dyslexia and about how it affects people, how we function. And I've not got dyslexia, I've got ADHD, but... Thank you for watching, guys.
Thank you.